Ooh. All right. Hey everybody. So we have just gone live, but if you probably jumped back a little bit in time and I was still thinking about my hoodie, like, straighten this up, do what Seinfeld says, it's nice to move things around. Let's see. Okay, I'm definitely out of focus. Let me try this. Hey everybody. So we have just gone live, but if you probably jumped back a little bit in time and I was still thinking about my hoodie. I think that focus is good. Do what Seinfeld says, it's nice to move things around. Let's see. Okay. I feel like I'm too loud. You guys who are here with me right now before we go live, let me know if the volume is crazy as usual. And Tim Farmer, you are welcome. Let me mute that. Okay, I feel like I'm way too loud. I really got to turn it down, but you guys tell me otherwise, because you tend to have a different volume than me. Yes, Guild is up. Yes. Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Chris, for pointing it out. I lost. Aaron's 2 minutes early. Oh, Kathy was betting on me being on time. I honestly was totally ready to go, but then I was like, hey, how do I get this graphic and this graphic? And that's classic for me. Spent the last hour with some last minute ideas. Sounds good, not too loud, Tim says. That's good news. Okay, well, we're about to go live. We'll forego the stretch of like pre-video clips, and we'll just go live here in 41 seconds. That sounds good to me. I saw Robert Mawiney's with us. That's a name I haven't seen on here before. Hey, Robert, welcome in. We got Chris and Tim and Rhonda and Kathy. And Robert Mawiney already said Ron. And who else is up here in the chat? Michael's here. And hello's here. On hello, Angelo, Tim, Rob R. Count me in. How do I log in the meeting? Hey, Rob R. Welcome in. You are here. So I saw a comment by Chris Whiting saying, just made it home. And I'm home. Welcome in. I'm glad that you rushed to get here for this. I'll send you your winnings, Kathy. Hey, Steve Thompson. Welcome in, man. All right. So, the clock has struck 0. Let's move along. Wait. One more thing. I just got to do this in the background before it comes a problem. So, I have this chat window that I need to make sure the live chat pops up in. Paste that in. All right, that's working. Now I will go for the beginner. Let's do this. It's Milky Way Wednesday. Welcome in. Hey, everybody. And it just showed up me. Oh, there I am. It wasn't showing me for a second, but welcome in. I am Aaron King with Photog Adventures, and it's Wednesday again, which means I get a chance to talk about Milky Way stuff with you fellow nerds. I think my focus is still a little off. I just barely realized when I was chuckling to myself when Kathy was saying that she placed a bet that I would be late. I'm like, I wasn't going to be late. I was ready to go. I got my water. I got the stuff ready. Got a computer here, the iPad there, and I realized, I don't have the camera up yet. I didn't have the camera out of my camera bag. John Crooks, how'd the main trip go? We had to cancel it. Weather was horrible. Damage was happening at the lighthouse and construction was going on and it wasn't safe. I couldn't secure a permit. I couldn't get people out there. So we had to postpone it, to be honest. My bummer. I really don't like that focus. Is that even better? That is better. Let me see how it comes up here, about 30 seconds. Name is unique. Greetings all. How's it going? Amaki is here. Dave, welcome in. Let me check out that cam chat, but I'm thinking I'll watch that. I'm watching the delay. That focus is soft, but it's okay. I mean, it's not too annoying. Fortunately, that lens has lost its autofocus, and so now I can't use it. SM Wilkes is here. Hey. Hi, y'all from New York, Northeast Georgia. And John Sievert's here. Cool. I'll be featuring John's images tonight. So let's talk about this. And while I give you guys a quick rundown, I am going to make sure in the background I am holding my iPad visible. So let's move this screen over and fit it to the window, most likely around here. Let's get Photoshop window to be fitting right about there. And Lightroom. Because today what we're going to do is we are going to talk about the typical issues that you can run into with a panorama. I'm going to spend more time on the editing of a panorama and fixing an issue that came up there, the simple, easy way to fix it. Now, the situation with my edit is that I'm going to show you a very simple option It's not the only option. It's not the only way to do it, but it is an easy way and one way that you should consider if you have such an issue, and then move on from there with more advanced techniques. Hey from Boise. Hey, welcome in. So I am going to talk about the typical pitfalls that can happen with the panorama when you're capturing. Just a small little reminder of things that I've said before, and then we'll go into the edit and do something different, because you have spent a lot of time this year just watching me talk and watching me write, and let's get into an actual Lightroom app this year for the first time. David Nelson's here from Grass Valley. Hey, Dave Nelson, you must be a friend with John. He must be in the camera club. Welcome in. Tom from Arizona, his name is unique. Hey, Tom. And, oh, that's right. I know Tom. Hey, Tom. I always forget that your name is unique on YouTube. And Michael Shower says, is it Shower or Schuyer? Schuyer. If I wanted to say that in the Dutch way, it'd be like Schuyer. But I don't know if you want to have it that way. Is it Michael Shower? If it is, just give me a thumbs up. And he says, oh, coincidentally, his message is retracted, so I can't even comment it anymore. But if you guys have any comments and you want to make sure I see them here in the live chat while I'm going through this, say you want to ask a question about something I did in Lightroom, or if you want to stop me about something I was clarifying and you didn't understand, or you just want to comment and add a comment to it, like a second witness, and say what Aaron just said is really true, I found blah, 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 or you have a tip that I haven't mentioned, hit it up with all caps. So like this, like sure, Michael Sure. Welcome in, Mike. Thanks for clarifying that for me. I'm always curious about how to pronounce people's names. I kind of get hung up on it. I remember long ago in Coquette. See, I'm already doing it wrong. When she was in here and I was trying to say her name, Coquette, right. And I think it was Cocotte or Coquette. I can't recall. It was French name. If it's spelled Coco and then Te, then it makes sense. But I think it was just Coquette. I'm trying to recall. Darn it. Well, anyway, if you write in all caps, if you're not Dutch, you're not much. dang right, Tom. Of course, I am half the size of the average person in the Netherlands. The Netherlands do not consider me Dutch either. But write in all caps. So when you have a question or a comment you want me to not miss, do that, please. All right, let's go ahead and go see what my iPad is showing, which it is not showing anything quite yet. That's right. Let's go ahead and do my share. So if you guys are new to Milky Way or Milky Way Wednesday, basically I go through different lessons that I can pull up and share and feature the Milky Way in some way, whether we look at pictures and review them, whether I show my recent adventure that I went out on, things that I learned, things that went well, that didn't go well. For instance, I'll be showing off what John and I captured at Ward Charcoal Kilns next week. And so I'll actually be able to show off one of my own my own photos, my own adventure that I haven't been able to share recently. So that'll be fun. And we also go through lessons that teach Milky Way photography. And if you have any requests that you want me to hit up, go ahead and send me an email here at milkywaywednesday@gmail.com, and that will come right to me. And if I remember to look before that Wednesday, I'll take on your question. But as soon as I recall that I have that email, because I often forget, I go into it, check it out, and go, all right, cool, there's a good question I need to answer on Milky Way Wednesday, and we take it from there. Looks like my iPad is now on the correct internet, and it's it's sending off to the desktop. 1 second, I get that going. Let's see, did I miss anything? No, from Ozzy and Harriet. Andy here in Northern Nevada. Hey, Andy, welcome in. I almost drove into Reno area, but I did not. I stayed further south. Chris Woodruff's here. We got both Chris's, Chris Whiting and Chris Woodruff. Awesome. Hope you guys all can forgive me for that glitch on the guild for that long time. A lot of unfortunate stuff there. But it's working as expected now. Let's see if this is the setup. Yes. Okay. Now I've got a line as a guide to see how far I should bring over my Lightroom. Follow that iPad. And then bring in my Photoshop, that same distance. And my window. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and focus first on the iPad. The things that you need to focus on and think about when you're doing a panorama are making sure basically your stitch is going to be easy. And if you want your stitch to be easy, there's some things that can crop up issues. And they all can be solved with a couple things. A couple easy things to remember. Basically, one, you want to have room. And to simplify that, just call it room, but there is headroom. Come on, come back to writing. Headroom above the Milky Way at the highest point, but then also right and left room off to the right and left of the Milky Way. And we're going to talk about a specific star on both sides that you can use, or a section of stars that you can use as a guide, so you know where you should be considering is important on your panorama, where not to cut off, and what to be looking for. The second thing is no weird shapes. And those weird shapes really only occur in the corners really close. So imagine I'm sitting here in an area like off of this hill. Woo. And right above me, let's do it in white, there's a tree branch that's coming down, and maybe a couple tree branches like this, one reaching really low because it's dead, one that has low bearing with all the leaves on it, and then like a bushy kind of coniferous tree branch right here. And you're standing happily. Let's do yellow. Let's go back and get all of those in there. You're standing happily here. And you've got your tripod up and your camera going, but your wide-angle lens is picking up this branch and picking up these and then picking up the rest of your scene all the way out here. Well, what ends up happening is what was a horrible situation for me out in Crater Lake, where I ended up with a shot right here. You can see in this that I had these branches sticking in on the left, but I also had some other ones poking off from the right that ended up only being merged at the top here. And with that weirdness of extra kind of reaching in, that caused my panorama stitch in Lightroom to be like, whoa, what's going on here? This is in 4 different frames. You can see the frame here with the little bit, the frame here with quite a lot of that branch, and then much more of the same branches. And then on the other side, you can see how the branches reached in on that side as well. You can barely see that through the live stream, but there is a little black line there that is representing that. And so what you're going to run into is weird stitch issues. So if you can basically sneak just forward a few inches and get yourself set up right here, hopefully it's not down on a cliff, and then you get your tripod pointing out that way, you got your view completely pristine and clear of any obstacles. So you want to avoid those weird shapes. But then the other thing that is really nice to know about the Milky Way Panorama that I'm going to spend a little bit of time on here before we go into the edits. And this part is, come on, better circles. Let's do all around better. Here's a nice circle, perfect circle with a 3 in it. Yes. So then you're thinking about the timing and what kind of Milky Way panorama you can get in the timing. And we're going to talk about every single month. I have over here my notes, and I'm going to show you examples here on my iPad, as well as help you understand the window that I appreciate versus what might just work still, but it's my favorite window and why I think that it works better. So let's go ahead. I'm going to open up a folder on the outside of this. Okay. Open up a folder so that I can pull up this panorama example. You have this panorama, which shows off my absolute favorite time to show off the Milky Way. And let's minimize it into our space here so that you can really see it. This panorama was done in March, and it was towards later in the morning in March, and you can see this height of the Milky Way. There's 2 numbers that you get from photo pills that are important. Let's go into that, and I'm going to show you on my iPad. So this is a typical February Milky Way pano. Let me go into a typical March one. Or this is actually the most extreme example of the side, but let's just use it because it has more example of the shape. So when we're talking about these two numbers that I'll show you in photopills, they are right here. Let me do a nice bright yellow. And that is max Milky Way elevation. And then you have inside the Milky Way, basically you got Sagittarius, this constellation. If I'm recognizing it correctly from here, this is the pour spout of the tea kettle. Here's the handle, here's the base, and there's a star up here. I think it's not that one, I think it's further down, but it's basically the handle on top. And so this Sagittarius tea kettle constellation points right up here to a certain spot that is Sagittarius A asterisk. And that A asterisk is a radio signal in the center of our Milky Way galaxy. That is what they call the core, the galactic core. Whenever you see it in photopills or planet, they say the galactic core is up. The galactic core, is really all of this right here, but the center of it, the center point, is the exact marker that they watch to receive, like wait for it to go above the horizon. So if that marker was right here, it would be no galactic core. But if that marker was here, they say, yes, there is a galactic core. And so the apps are telling you when it's rising and when it comes up above that 0 degree mark of the horizon. And that is the height that it tells you in this app that I'm about to show you. But for panorama purposes, the only numbers you need are the ones talking about that max Milky Way elevation. So let's go into photopills. And let's look at this. Now this is going to be photopills from, it's down here. My photopills from my iPad. So on your phone, you're going to get a little different view of everything. For instance, you might be used to this view, vertical, with the modules up top. But on my iPad in Planner, I have everything horizontal, and then the modules are here on the right instead of on the top, which is very convenient. And so if you have an iPad, definitely open up your photopills in that location. So first off, let's load a point of interest, and I'm going to go to load a point of Bisti. Oh, I don't have that saved on here. Cool. Let's do just Bonneville Salt Flats. I was just there. So the Bonneville Salt Flats is a good close area, and if I double tap this clock right here at the bottom, that's going to move me to right now. So hey, it's sunset golden hour happening right now in Bonneville Salt Flats. I tap over on this timeline. Sunset, you can see right here. Can you see that right there? Sunset is happening at 7:48. Oh, I missed the control button. Come on. Oh, I'm completely whiffing on the keyboard. I was hitting shift button. So that is saying sunset is happening right then. As I go forward in the timeline, I start to see these dots, and if you're brand new to photopills, I'll let you know that this visibility galactic core, this icon, that turns it off and on. So you need to hit this button if you don't see it on yours, if you happen to have opened yours up right now. So this is showing us that the Milky Way is there, but then the core is not visible yet. The core visibility is represented by this gray line and this gray line. And this line right here is a secondary line, but the primary line is this fat, thick one that is going to line up with the core right on that bigger ball compared to the other dots here, and that is the Milky Way core. And so the visibility of that starts about here at around 3:17 a.m. and then continues on through the morning until astro twilight, which, if I tap the timeline over, is right there at 6:22 a.m. So when you look at visibility, you say, oh, 3:14 a.m. until 6:04. But this module, the one with this graphic, is the one that I want to point out today. So in March, the new moon's already happened. So if I tap that once right here, it'll go to the next new moon. If I tap it twice, previous new moon. So March 10th was the new moon this month. I tap it once, I go over to April 8th, and that's the next new moon. And let's look at the Milky Way and what happens to it. There's a galactic center number I told you about, and then the Milky Way max elevation number. And the galactic centers, when it rises, you can see that it's right now currently -3. It's getting close to the horizon. Let me expand this timeline. Cool. So I can scrub it, and right about, okay. Come on. Go back slowly. There's negative 0.1 and then 0, 0 right here. So at 158, the Milky Way core is on 0, and it start rising at 159, and then it goes forward in time. Let me go zoom out on that timeline. So you can see the Milky Way moving through the day. And you think, okay, panorama is good when during this pie shape? From here to here, is all of it good? Well, I have a favorite time. And my favorite time for the Milky Way core are two numbers you should know. The max elevation, I'll just do it in yellow so you recognize it as max elevation. It begins being great at 30 degrees and continues until 45 degrees. That's Aaron King's personal preference. The reason why I say 30 degrees and not just as soon as it's visible is because of this example here in February. This is the highest the Milky Way core gets in February. Let me pull into that app and show you the action. So tonight, oh, whoops. Come on, go full screen. Why aren't you full screen? What is that? Let me close out of Sky Guide and open it back up so that it'll actually show full screen, right to left. Cool, here we go. And then we move forward in time. And even though we're not going to have a full Milky Way example tonight, we're going to go through every single one of those types of Milky Way. What I mean is that the different shape the Milky Way makes as it moves up through the sky happens every day. It depends on the time of year whether that nighttime window where it's dark is actually during a time that the Milky Way core is above the horizon or not. Maybe when it finally gets dark, this Milky Way has already long since risen, and that's why we don't see it during the night of winter in December. But here at 3 a.m., you see the Milky Way at this height. And with this height, it is, so if I wanted to look at, I wrote this down. Oh, where did I write it down? I thought I wrote a favorite time. Did I write it on the previous page? Let's find out. Let's see if I wrote it on this page. Oh, I didn't write it there. Okay, I didn't record it, but that is fine. Let's just go into it and show you what I'm talking about. So as I zoom in, oh, it did that thing again. That's too bad. All right. I apparently cannot go back and forth between Sky Guide. Once I'm in, I got to stay in. Otherwise, it's going to do that lack of full screen. So if I'm going to go forward in time and go into the night, and as the Milky Way moves a little too fast, let's slow it down. Let's look over to the southeast. The Milky Way has not risen yet. Pay attention to where my cursor is on top of Antares, kind of right here. Think of a circle around that, and then watch it as I go forward in time, just to remind you about my other favorite tip. I'm going to go forward about an hour, and when that hour hits, the Milky Way core is on the horizon, and then it continues moving up. Well, let's slow this down. Let's go only forward times 100, and let's look at this Milky Way band going across. This is the Milky Way band in a very low February time, but if you were to look at tonight's time, I'll look at my phone, change it to tonight, and let's make sure I'm looking at a Milky Way that is 30 degrees. 30 degrees max elevation. Sweet, almost there, and sometime around 4:15. So I'm almost there, cool. So 4:11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So this is an example of a 30 degrees Milky Way. It's at the very beginning of it getting good. Watch that Milky Way left side. Watch what changes as I go backwards in time. Watch how it kind of reaches up. When you think, oh, I can't go back and forth. When you think of a Milky Way, let's go full screen on me. When you think of a Milky Way shape, you think of this cool arch. You want an arch. And I can't do it with no hands. Is there anything else I can make an arch with? My visual aids. Oh. Classic. Visual aid. You think about it, this arch, this shape of the headphone going up. And for some reason, when the Milky Way is in February, the north is tipped up. It doesn't always start on one side, go up, and then come down into the terminate on the horizon. So if you treat this edge right here as the horizon, it doesn't have this cool arching shape. It sometimes, on the left side, leans up and up and up. I'm going to break these headphones trying to show this, but up and up and up. And so as you're looking on this graphic here, you can see how it is going up on this side. And when I go forward in time, it starts to curl back down as the Milky Way core rises up. And so what did I say was beginning 415? And so around 415 is kind of a safe spot where it started to curl back down at equal sides. Plus there's a good space underneath. There's not too much negative space between here, the horizon, and the Milky Way arch. When you go into 45 degrees, when's that going to be? 45 degrees will happen at around 539. So let's just go to like 5. Oh, I can't click there. 538. And stop. Oh, I went and clicked too greedily. 538. Oh, that's perfect. We'll stop right there. So this is an example of what that shape is. And at 45, it's actually quite terrific. Not only is it really interesting, but you've also got Andromeda popping up over the horizon, and Antares and Scorpius are really high. This whole Rho Ophiuchi area is up high. The core is high. Everything should be clearing, say, a mountain range, a man-made subject that you have nearby. It's pretty decent for making sure that you have a good composition. Well, the key for me is this window. And so when I was showing off this picture yet again and said, oh, I really love that, it turned out really well. When I have other areas like, oh no, just when I thought I had 100% of my images in a good spot, I'm realizing I probably don't have this. But let's go. I think I got it. Almanac. Dubba-dubba-doo. I'm basically going to pull up an example of an image where I had to wait for clouds to move, and I had to go beyond that 45 degree mark, and I got the exact same image as this with a different location, but the Milky Way was worse. And you'll see an example of why it does look worse when you see this panorama. So, come on, Aaron, you know you got it. Okay, this is the best I'll probably be able to get, but we'll go for it. This is going to be the Lightroom capture of the panel before I fully stitched it, but you get an example here, a decent one. So let's go as big as I can make it. So you have this panel with this height of the arch versus this panel with this height of the arch. Oh, I don't need that. So you got a completely similar setup with 1 minute exposure in the foreground, 8 seconds in the sky, 1 minute exposure in the foreground, 8 seconds in the sky. And the Milky Way is just that much different of height from the horizon in this shot than it is over here. And if I could have had that a little bit lower, I think it would have made the whole image much better. And I could have had it even stronger. So my favorite, my personal favorite, and safe zone for anyone to consider is going to be when you are dealing with the Milky Way at a 30 degrees max elevation height to a 45 degree max elevation height. So he's in total educator mode. Thanks, Angelo. Aaron just came on. Where is that location? So Tim Bradley's asking about the location. Are you talking about the more purple Milky Way? And just know that the color in this is just the sensors that night, the conditions of that night. I used the exact same lens and camera and the exact same settings as I captured this one with like almost no purple in it versus this one. And it's not my post-processing, I'm telling you. I white balanced it down to probably both around 43 Kelvin, 4300 Kelvin. So this location, in case you meant this, Tim Bradley, is over on Grand Viewpoint off of Canyonland. So you're up at Island in the Sky, and you're looking over the cliff edge down at the Canyonland below, another canyon down below that looks like a dinosaur footprint. Freaking love it. Then there's this location that I'm not going to tell you by, what am I kidding? This is so not secret anymore. This is Mars Overlook. If you look on Google, it'll be called Moon Overlook. And it's a really cool sunrise location. It's my favorite place for a sunrise, but it just didn't turn out for Milky Way. The Milky Way is so far down south over here. It doesn't line up exactly over everything interesting. And it just wasn't as cool. It even had like the same sort of like panel warping in front of me on a flat line that I had here. And it just still, down here, there wasn't as something as dynamic as this to look at. This is really crazy cool. But there is a difference between a very dark, hard to see spot that has also this high white highlight here. This very white rock on the outside of the ridge draws the shape out and gives it definition that I wouldn't get without that different color of rock. When all the colors of rock are pretty much the same, it looks like a muddy, low exposure shot. Am I going to get a pano here in Washington? You can get a pano in Washington, absolutely. No, my example. Maybe he meant this one as my example. I will be at Moon Overlook in May. Thanks, Aaron. You bet, Tim. You absolutely should go. I wish they called it Mars Overlook. It's cooler that way. But someone went into Google Maps and added it on Google Maps as Moon Overlook. It's right next to Factory Butte. So I just told everyone on the live stream everything you need to know about this location, and it's fantastic. I just barely drove a rental car, Kia, without even four-wheel drive and without any real clearance, just a little bit of clearance, and I drove right into here. So you don't even have to have a very great vehicle. Just be prepared to have a flat tire if you hit a rock just a little bit wrong. But that is a cool spot. Great sunrise. Absolutely love it. So we go back into my iPad, and we're talking that window of time is really great to work with. So you want to deal with that timing of 30 degrees to 45. Now, again, this is my personal preference, and this is cool in my perspective because it helps my panorama have just the right interest, just the right kind of shape to work with, where things start looking good. Things have a great balance, but they also have a nice shaping Milky Way band coming down in to the frame. I just opened up the same one. Close that, and this is the green one I'm looking for. Ba-boom, I love this one too. This is a panel over Dance Hall Rock, and if you have not gone to Dance Hall Rock yet, I am sorry, but this tree is dying. This tree is dying, and there really is just no leaves anywhere above this part. There's like a bald, like a little tiny spot of green here, and the rest is all bald. And then down here they have some leaves. It is disappointingly barren. It used to be a full leafed tree, and now it is not. I was kind of sad when I recognized that was really what was happening. I thought maybe a couple winters, a couple bad seasons, it was going to be fine, but last year it was still just as barren as ever. But it looks really good. Is the panel full north and full south layers? Full north or full N and full S layers. Tim Bradley. Beautiful air glow. Agreed, Milkman. Agreed. When you have this green air glow come in, the conditions of the night help so much. They turn out so well. You'll see this same area tonight in the edit here in just a few minutes, where I have with John Sievert, we captured a not as green, but pretty good air glow, and it's different between Factory Butte and this night of Bonneville Salt Flats. So north and south. I'm not sure exactly how you're meaning that, but let me say this. The Milky Way, when you have the panorama possible for us in the northern hemisphere, you're pretty much looking from the southeast all the way to the north. That's your 180. That's what you end up looking at, is that stretch there. If you watch my video from last Milky Way Wednesday, 2 Wednesdays ago, you'll see me in Planet planning out a panorama over Factory Butte, and you can see the 180 degrees and how I planned it on Planet, and you can see all the images that would be in the frame during that. So hopefully that made some sense, and you can follow up with that other Milky Way Wednesday and check it out there. Okay, so we're going to go in and we're going to talk about some of the issues that can come in. I have mentioned that you can solve your issues by giving yourself headroom right and left. And I haven't talked about the stars yet that is going to give you that headroom. I've really emphasized the weird shapes with this drawing down here, and the timing is going to help you because you're not going to have too high to go to get your whole panorama in. And when you don't have to go to too many extremes, you don't have to go outside of the 180 degrees in front of you, you will have an easier time making sure that panorama stitches. And I'm talking about stitching in Lightroom. Easy mode, simple mode, just Lightroom, stitching it there. So then let's go into the room and the headroom discussion, and that's what I'm going to use. You know what? I am going to just duplicate this and use this to show it off. So we're going to go into this, and I'm going to get rid of all my other notes. See ya. And when you're thinking about a panorama, I haven't emphasized this, but I think most of you have figured this out. Oh, real quick, from Chris Whiting. He says, when I shoot a full arch, I shoot for 190 degrees to have a crop. Yes, okay, we're talking about that extra space. You're gonna see what he is saying here. Because a true 180 will kind of crop off a little bit close to Cassiopeia to Raufuki, and so you're going to end up with a little bit less space than you want. So yeah, you kind of do just expand a little bit to about 190. He's totally right, totally correct. All right, so let's think about our frame. And this is something I haven't mentioned, but I believe it is pretty much universal. Everyone understands that when you do a panorama, the best and easiest way is to tackle it with a vertical orientation. That way, when you have a lot of information that you're overlapping and stitching together, you have a lot of overlapping data that is recognized, and boom, you've got your pano. So if you were to do horizontal, it's not the worst. It is the worst when this doesn't actually draw my square. Yes. It's not the worst. It's just you end up taking the shorter part of the image. I should have overlapped it still. The shorter part of the image and stitching those. It's less information and less easy to guarantee, but it does work. It didn't used to always work, but man, things are getting so easy now that you don't even have to really think about it. So if you're vertical or horizontal, you'll be okay, but I recommend horizontal or vertical so that you can get, in that frame, in your rectangle, you have your landscape, you have your Milky Way. Let's do it with this color. You have your Milky Way core going up and into it. And so you're getting a lot of room for stars and a lot of room for your foreground, because maybe you do have some really cool pink flowers that are right in front of you in your foreground in a hyper foreground distance that you can be like, woof, I'm going to go wide over as I can, as big as I can. I'm going to include those flowers and go right and left along the horizon. And that's going to be your panel. So let's go back and finish up this and then go into the edit, because it's 7:35 and I wanted to be in the edit 5 minutes ago. So looking at this is the trick. I better draw the square a little bigger if I'm going to do the trick. Yeah, probably work about this size. This is my third center, third off method. And what I mean by that, let me just finish the square right here and go to another window. In fact, just draw over here. Third center, third off. Third to the center to the third to off. Kind of think of it as the 3C3O method, like 3C3. I always get messed up. 3CPO. 3CPO. C3PO. That's why it sounded weird. C is first. So C3PO, 3C3O. It kind of gets stuck in your head. Or you get it wrong in your head like I just did. Well, basically what's happening is when you look inside your frame, and you see inside your frame on live view, you, depending on your camera, will see 1 star, or 2 or 3, maybe 6. Maybe you see as many as 6, but you see these stars. And what you should do is you should pick one and be like, that is my star. And this star, you're going to start it off right here on the third. You're going to go right and left until it's sitting here on the third. Take the picture. And then you're going to move that star to the center. Take the picture. Then you're going to move that star to the other third and take the picture. Then you're going to move it off. This isn't exactly ratioed for like thirds, but let me show you what I mean in Photoshop. So you have a star right here that is the Raufuki. This is the Antares star in the middle of the Raufuki, and this is an image from John. A little bit of context here. We had just gotten there, just gotten ready to go, and we were excited. It was cold, but we were going to have a great time. And then another car shows up, and we're like, oh! And I'm thinking from my experience, dude, John, go, dude. She's going to be walking out here with her friends with all those lights. They're going to be lighting up your left side of the frame, so hurry, and start capturing his panel. So we started from the left to the right, which normally I start from the right to left. And it really only matters in Star Trek shots when it kind of helps you going from left to right. But either way works. Either way it works. So we're looking at now the far left frame. And you have right here Cassiopeia. He has it on his right third. Then he goes to the next image when he moved it to the center. He takes another picture. Then he moves it again roughly to the third. I mean, we're talking about in the dark. There's not really lines on your camera, and you're trying to, warm your hands up in between each shot. So then this is not showing identically on the line, but that's not important. The important thing is we're trying to get a really good overlap. Let me explain what I mean. So when you have a rectangle, I better not zoom in that far because it won't work. Let's go for a rectangle right here. Yes, it worked. Okay, so here is my shape. And if I go from here to here, 0 overlap. If I take my shape from here and go, let's just do half, right in the middle, that's 50% overlap. The recommended overlap, at least to make sure things work, is 30% overlap. So this first third, you're overlapping. Then you go to the next image and overlapping at the third. Then you go to the next image and overlapping at the third. And so on. To make that more clear, I'm going to draw another square in yellow. And, select it, shrink it a little bit close to that size. Okay. So then I've got this one, and I've gone over to the third, and I've overlapped. Now, I'm going to save that here, and I want to bring this square. And I'm going to have another color on it, but I'm just not going to worry about that. And then you go over, and I do worry about that. All right, perfectionist. Square. So then you draw you get another picture, and you go over to that third, and you continue on. Hello. I guess you got ruined. Sometimes when the shapes get changed a little bit, they won't respond. Boom. So now you can see, if I color this in, the overlap from the yellow to the blue is right here. The overlap from the blue on top of the yellow is right here. The blue's on top of the yellow. And then the other new yellow is on top of the blue third over here. That is what a 30% overlap kind of looks like, and that's what's happening with your panorama, is you're trying to have those overlaps occur. If you successfully have a 30%, that's not percent, this is what percent looks like, to 50% overlap, you can't lose. Lightroom will recognize it. Lightroom will find enough shared information on both images and go, that's where you want me to stitch. Boom, and the stitch works brilliantly. Steve says, I use my grid in the viewfinder for the thirds reference. So in the situation in his camera, his meaning John Sievert, my 2024 Milky Way apprentice, I should emphasize that. I did a new thing this year where I had a Milky Way apprentice, and basically I give him about, what do you think, John, 40 hours plus of Zoom time, and then we're also on location, one-on-one. We just did a 7-night workshop. Then he's going to come for 2 other workshops where we're going to be shared attention with other attendees, but he has 2 other workshops to come to. Then he has a 4th one that he's coming to finalize, and we're trying to add a 5th one because we realize we want even more time together. So he's basically with me at my hip all year long, and I'm helping him master Milky Way photography. So John Sievert, everybody, this is his cool image. So looking at this is his viewfinder. He roughly had a middle line showing up on his viewfinder grid, and then he ended up having these kind of lines that were showing leveling that came off of the center. And so the inside of those lines we called the third, and we considered it good. So you have to only go roughly. And the reason why I say that is because the overlap that happens with Aaron King's third center, third off is not 30%. It's a lot of overlap. It's the I don't want someone who's brand new at this to fail overlap. So let's look at this. Here's image 9. I'm going to turn off these other images so they don't have any distracting visibility on them. And I am going to change this image with a gradient map. I'm going to make this a really dramatic pink color. Come on, let's go for a really cool pink. And so I can't see what I've done because this is visible. So that's what pink is doing. Let's do a darker pink. Oh, whoops. There we go. Here, this pink. Let's go for a darker pink that's still visible. This one's the most visible. And then I just bring my gradient down on this map, my opacity down. So here's this layer, and here's this image. And so what you're going to see is that this image right here versus this image below it. See the movement of the mountains? I am going to pull this one underneath everything and bring the opacity down. Bring the opacity down on this image a lot. You're going to see the gradient map. I need to give it its own. So here's the overlap of the mountains in the background. You can see where they are. The hill, this distortion on the lens, you can see it's not perfect as it doesn't line up one-to-one. I'm seeing some copies. Okay, I saw some comments. I meant not copies. I accidentally bumped a Z. Okay, so there it is. You can see the warping that happens on the end of the lens that makes this stretch differently on the edge versus when it was towards the middle. So even just these two images side by side, they already have that much difference on the edges that's happening as the warping does happen. When you see that they're overlapping, how much is that overlapping? That's 3/4 of the image is overlapping. And if I turn this back on and turn this one off, and let's bring the opacity. Maybe I don't even need the gradient map. I thought maybe they would, I'd have to assign their color to it, but I don't want to flatten the image there. So I can't force those layers to be separate, but we'll go ahead and drag this one over. This image, low opacity now over the next one, and it goes over here, roughly. So now it overlaps with image 8 and 7. So that's another 3/4 that Lightroom has to use. So there's lots of overlap. And this is simply just 10 images, or actually 9. So you can see the overlap is quite extreme. Let me just undo all those changes to get all the frames in perspective. Kill my gradient map. And almost there. Come on, go away, gradient map. All right, cool. So here's our images. And you're going to see as we go from right to left. I just killed all my time. That's okay. So here's this image on number 9. He went and did the third center, third off method. So he's getting 3/4 overlap to here. And he brought Sagittarius right there to the middle. Then another 3/4 overlap with Sagittarius, which is really here next to the third. And then his goal was to go off, and he almost got it off. He got pretty far. But at this point, what happens is you pick another star. So maybe this star was bright to him, or maybe I will say this star right here. I think I'll be able to recognize it in both frames. This star, which I believe is Deneb, or further on is Deneb. This star right here is on the third, and then that star came over. Oh, I don't recognize it. Oh, there it is. It's right here. This star is on the left side of center. So it came to the center, and then it came to the left. Let's see if I recognize that. That was a bigger leap. But he has Vega now in view, and so he knew that was in center. So he brought Vega from center to the third. So we're using Vega. And then he goes off of Vega, off the screen, and he's got the Milky Way core. And in the night, you see Altair, but on this, it kind of blends right in. It's hard to see Altair. So using Altair, most likely he came over, but he, also was doing this. So watch the Rofuki. You start it in the center. He was just a little bit off because we started from the left instead of from the right. The Rofuki star Antares is very visible. Then you bring that over here to the third, and when you bring the Rofuki over to the third, what happens is the core is on the center of your lens. So you definitely have your core at one of your most sharper, non-distorted sections of your lens, which is really great. Plus, he got a little meteorite. It was cool. And then after that Rofuki, I see I'm going backwards. Rofuki on the left third, the center, to the right third, and then the Rofuki goes off. He doesn't need another star to show up. He just needs to make the Rofuki go off. Third, center, third, off. He made that go off the screen, and he took his picture. And then he looked for another star. And when he looked for another star, he decided, that star is visible, probably this one. and bring that over to the center. Let's see if that's what happens. Yeah, it's right behind that line, right in the center. And that became the center, and then he brought it over to the third, a little bit beyond the third, but he brought it over the third, and then he continued on till he saw Cassiopeia's W, which is starting right about here, and Cassiopeia came to the third, and it went over to the center, and then Cassiopeia went over to the right third, and at that point, he had given himself enough room. When you think about the space that needs to happen, let's do that right here. The space that needs to happen is this. You want headroom. And the headroom is, oh, I'm not writing the word Vega, I'm writing the word headroom. The headroom is Vega. The Vega star is your headroom. So the space up at the top of your frame should be Vega. You should turn towards your center of your Milky Way panorama and make sure Vega is not being cut off, and go right and left and see it stay in frame, and you know that you've given yourself enough headroom above the arch of the Milky Way, because the arch of the Milky Way is kind of, oh, I hate when you do that. This takes so long to go away. All right. It's right about here. And it's like, well, Vega's more in the center, so draw that centered. To force it be centered, I made a pyramid. But still, that is kind of the top of the arch where Vega is, and then Deneb is kind of underneath, and Altair is kind of above. So you have this summer triangle right there that is in the center of your Milky Way panorama. And then you have the row of Ophiuchi Antares up here, so Antares. And then you have the W that makes up Cassiopeia in the Milky Way. I'll just write Cass. So that is your right, left, center. Let's go over to my other app. But, oh, I see. I want to go to the other picture instead. So I'm thinking about this, not a mouse. I'm thinking about getting this asset. Oh, it's not going to move that way anymore. Okay. I'm going to try, let's do a new square. So we wanted to make row Ophiuchi on the third. So here's our first frame. Row Ophiuchi's on the third. Then our second frame is in the middle. Then our third frame, it's on the third on the right. And now that has put the core towards the center of our lens, if the lens is correctly drawn on the rectangle that I haphazardly drew. But I wanted to make sure that Vega was getting clearance. Now when I say clearance, you shouldn't clear Vega a lot. You should really bring it up to the top of your frame. You really don't need to go much. If you knew Vega was right there and you cut it off, that's okay. Because, I mean, look at the extra headroom that you have here. I mean, you've got this headroom from the Milky Way right here up to here. That's a lot of room. So the headroom has been granted. There is nothing wrong with this setup if you get at least Vega at the top. And you continue on through your pano and stay as level as you can, and then bring Cassiopeia on the far right third. And with that, you are going to end up with lots of bonus space on the right and left, like the 190 that Chris was talking about. So let me just pop out of this and remind you that you want room at the head, room on the right, and room on the left. Avoid any weird shapes. And your timing of the year, you want to stick with the range that's between 30 degrees and 45. You can make it work below 30. It's very flat, parallel Milky Way. Let me just show you. I saw this just the other day, and I'm like, I want to show it off again. This is Neil Zingel's image from his February Milky Way. And you can see how it basically just doesn't even end in the panorama. He doesn't have it terminate down in the terrain. He just crops it off right there. So a panorama on a February is going to be a different kind of panorama, but neat how it goes parallel almost all the way to the north in the February time of the year. Just March, just a month later, you can get it high enough and get this full termination, this beginning right here, and then terminating right there. It's fantastic. Okay, let's go back to my iPad. I think I can go back to my iPad. Go back to my iPad. So you just got to make sure that you do it in that range to have your best success, but it doesn't mean it's not possible on either ends. You go into July and continue into a later month where it's really, really high, go fisheye, and you bring it all in, you can stitch it, you can make it work. It's just my favorite is that range right there. And then if you need help to make sure that you are overlapping enough, overkilling it, overdoing it enough, then you've got the third center, third off method, which is going to give you about a 75% overlap. And you could do third off if you wanted to do only a third overlap. But I like to keep the center to make sure that everything in my lens is a nice clean spot of my lens that's in the panorama. That's emphasized in this old lesson right here, where you're looking at your lens and you think of it as this. The corners have vignetting, the warping happens outside this first oval, and then stuff in the golden circle is just right. It's just perfect. And then when you bring that into a panorama and overlap your panorama with this kind of framing, you're getting that golden circle overlapped like a bunch of baseball, tennis balls, and boom. You've got all that good and glorious part of your panorama covered with the golden part of your lens. And then 2 rows if you need to. I saw someone talk about 2 rows earlier. If you need to get your foreground in and something else in, you can go 2 rows. Like say you're sitting there with a 35 millimeter and you're doing a panorama that way. 2 rows will be necessary. But if you're at like 15, 16, even 24, sometimes 1 row is plenty. So let's look at this. I took us until 7:53 to explain this. I took the last 20 minutes into this time to explain some more of this because I was enjoying myself, I guess. Hopefully it was beneficial to you all. You can see some examples from people who have followed. Here's John Carter, Ryan Luna, Chris Woodruff, Ryan Luna, and Blake Fair. They all have fantastic panoramas here, and several of them are from the area in California and one in Australia. And these are completely different shapes, especially in Australia, that you have with the panorama that still look amazing. So there's all sorts of options that make panoramas look good. So let's go into Lightroom. Let's go and kill this, and let's go into Lightroom and talk about the simple edit. I only have 6 minutes, but I'm going to show you a very simple edit that's only going to take us about a 10-minute overtime. So if you guys are up for 8:10, I'm up too. So, when you're dealing with a panorama, simply put, you have to just edit one image and sync the edits to all the other ones. And when you're dealing with a panorama that has a Milky Way core and a foreground, you should make sure both of them are in your image that you edit. For instance, here's Factory Butte from John Sievert. This has some of the core and all of Factory Butte. Well, this next image has more of the core and Factory Butte, and then this image has all of the core and Factory Butte. So this is the one that I would edit. Now, if I was thinking about the Roafuki, which I love, I might choose this frame to edit to make sure Roafuki, and I can see this right there. I have all of that Roafuki space and core space nice and visible with the same terrain that is Factory Butte. And you can see how there are roughly no changes between this side of the Factory Butte and that side, so I could just edit this one if I wanted to and not edit one where the core is off on the right. So let's just do this one for the sake of today, but I think John and I edited this one. Now this is just the sky. This is just the sky row where the exposure was 30 seconds. Oh, this is the foreground. Is it really? It is the foreground. That's right. Go over, Aaron. This one. This one. Here we go. Starting from the far left, I'm over here. I got the core. I got Factory Butte in the core. And I got more sky. This is our sky shot. Our sky capture of this section was 10 seconds, f1.8, ISO 8000. And to keep it from being a forever shot, we did it at the same ISO at 30 seconds. On top of the keeping it from being a forever shot, we also have ISO 8000 because it makes it more simple to blend the two together. Hey, John, do you want to email me your final versions of both of these? Since I'm going to run out of time on showing them off, I'd love to show off your final version of both, your Factory Butte and your Bonneville Salt Flats. So let's go back into Factory Butte, the sky, and edit that real quick. Now again, this is my very simple, only in Lightroom edit that I think is enough. In fact, my absolute favorite picture of all time, edited just in Lightroom until I had to merge the foreground and the sky. Did that in Photoshop, but I didn't edit the image in Photoshop. This was done entirely in Lightroom. In fact, only when I put in the frame that had me and Brendan standing out here, that required Photoshop. This one right here, only in Lightroom. This one right here, Lightroom, but until you can see here, I'm merging those two layers together. This is the example of how merging the layers has darker horizon points, and so I have this really dark horizon point to show off how you have to fix those and make them look more natural, and they are a challenge. So when I was talking about this in the almanac, I was talking about those challenges that happen. This is not a final image. This is not a final image compared to how this one's been more perfected on the horizon. So this, and this, and this, and this were not only taken with the same camera and the same lens, but the editing was just done in Lightroom. I don't do anything crazy. I like to keep things really simple, so if you were brand new to Milky Way photography and you came out with me and I told you what to do is my way of doing things, it's not out of your reach. It's not impossible to do. You're not thinking about hours and hours of Photoshop. So then the only thing that we need to worry about is making the contrast show up. We want this Milky Way to pop again. And so we go into Develop module and we start on the work. Now you're going to get some weird lag in the live stream. Forgive me for that, but we'll do our best. So to start off first is you want to make sure you remove your chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections. Watch what happens on the edges. You see all that vignetting that goes away? When I was talking about some of the issues that happens on our panoramas, I was talking about the stuff that you should do to avoid issues when you bring it into post. Make sure it has a good overlap. Make sure you have all those weird shapes out of the way and you have plenty of headroom. That kind of stuff will prevent almost all problems. But what are some of the issues that crop up afterwards? And realistically, there's only a couple. And those issues afterwards, I'll just call them issues in post. I also saw a question pop up. Tim Farmer asks, is the factory butte looking southwest? Now, factory butte is like a mesa, a butte that has all directions around it from pretty much here all the way around to the side over there. So you can choose a question mark shape around Factory Butte to align yourself up so you can get a winter Milky Way facing west with Orion and everything over the butte. Then you go all the way on the other side, do some hiking and some trudging up soft sand sometimes that John and I had to do. Then we ditched it because it was a terrible idea. The spot right there will look east and see a summertime Milky Way panorama. So you can get both over Factory Butte. So issues in post are stitch, seam, forgot the T. Hey, I forgot the T. Stitch seams where they pucker. Like they have puckering, this puckering issue that I will show off. And the other thing is stitch artifacts. And those are different than seams because the seams are more, you look at it zoomed out and there's kind of this like spot that is visibly darker than the rest of the spots next to it. But the stitch artifacts is like a harsh line of a rock that's going like this and it's supposed to continue, but instead it's cut off and it looks more like this. And that cut right there happens, and we're going to show it how it happened in John's on the Bonneville Salt Flats. So when you have these seams or puckering artifacts that happen in post or happen while you stitch everything, you can fix them in post, and we're going to show you that now. Okay. So when I say make sure you do the enable profile corrections, one of the issues that people run into with some of the puckering is because they didn't do this first. And they stitched it first as raw. Well, they do stitch it raw, but they stitch it without any edits beforehand. And then that vignetting that goes from a gradient here to the edge, on both frames, they both have that, and they have a visible kind of woo, 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 woo in between each stitch. And so you want to avoid that, and you want to make sure that you definitely do your enable profile corrections and get rid of that vignetting and extra distortion. Now that I've done that, first thing I do is make a crazy vibrance and crazy saturation. And I zoom up into the corner where I see mostly dark, and I've zoomed in so that I can see just blue and realize I'm very blue right now. If I go over to the yellow, I'm very yellow. And I just want to keep going until I see a modeling of colors, kind of the mix of both. Not just blue-green, but also some yellows and purples in there. Ooh, that's a good spot. I'm going to call it right there. So this is a modeling. You can actually see dots and polka dots of kind of pink and yellow coming in here into the green and the blue. That is a balance. That's a good balance start. And then you zoom out and you handle the tint globally. And the tint can be way too green and yellow or way too magenta. And here you just watch globally and you try and get a mix of both. So look at the tint default. The camera sets a tint default based on itself, and it knows itself. And this one particularly went for +8. But I feel like I need to add a little more magenta in there to get it more balanced. And I'm going to go for something like that. That's +21. It looks gaudy. It looks horrible, but it's because I have vibrance and saturation on full. I double click those names and boom, there's the white balance. Practically looks black and white. So like I said, my goal is just to make it have contrast, make the Milky Way pop. So the first thing I always do is I tackle the sky, then I tackle the foreground. Exposure and contrast, global edit. Highlights, whites, dehaze, sky. Shadows, blacks, texture, clarity, foreground. And then vibrance and saturation, that's a color stretch. And just to give you guys a thank you for hanging out with me over time, since we're already at 8:03, let me hook you up with this little tip sheet that I created to remind people new to Lightroom what part of Lightroom's sliders in the develop module affect what part of the sky or foreground most. Everything gets affected globally, but some are far more obviously affected than others, and so I emphasize it this way with this. And you should see this tip sheet right now. So simple level, entry level post-processing. And you can see, if I can zoom in here. No, I'm typing it. Just let me zoom, please. Oh, I don't want to find text tools. Okay, you're not going to let me zoom like that? I'm going to go here. So you can see this. Go away. I know you had a new feature. Fantastic. I don't know what the new feature is, but I don't want to know right now. All right, this is the PDF. It reminds you what to do in lens correction, exposure, contrast, shadows, black, texture, clarity, white balance. But then it also points to the actual assets in Lightroom, and there they are. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click on my side and get a copy link for you, and then you all can download this PDF if you don't have it already right here in the chat. Go ahead and enjoy that link. I got a question from Tim Farmer again. The going up the sand is what I was wondering about. Thanks. I'll explain it at the end of this. Hang out, Tim Farmer, and this time I don't have to leave and don't have to bail on you like I did last time. I will tell you at the end of this. We'll hang out while everyone else is saying goodbye. So Chris Woodruff is helping out too. Awesome. Sweet. Okay, so looking at that tip sheet, that's what I was just talking about. You can have that. Please enjoy. So what I'm going to do here is affect globally the sky and the foreground. And I'm going to go in the exposure. And basically exposure is going to go from 0 to 1. I don't go higher than 1, hardly ever. My main goal is to make sure I have some visibility that I wasn't getting before at the basic exposure that I was starting with. In this case, I know I have a foreground and a different capture, so I don't need to worry about what it does to my foreground as much as what it does to my Milky Way. And just a little bit is beneficial. So I'm going to go ahead and just go for a nice 44. The numbers aren't important. It's only the range. Like, don't go over 1, and beyond that, you can choose anything inside there based on your personal artistic opinion. Now with contrast, the easy way is just to throw contrast in here with the slider. But another way is through this tone curve. And let me explain that here with my zoom. Do you think I should do it, Aaron? It might be a crazy spot. Okay, looks like I can work with it a little bit. So I am going to shrink this window live, and it's going to be a little bit annoying as I work through this, but I just want to make sure you see the tone curve. Oh, whoops. Shift? Yeah, nope, not shift. Alt. Hold down Alt, and it'll stretch. There we go. So basically this is 2 images of my screen, and it allows me to go to a specific spot on my screen, like this tone curve, and then I can show it much larger. In fact, let's just go over here and make it larger here. Alright, so now you can see kind of what I'm doing. In fact, I'm going to cut it back a little bit so you don't have a distracting element on the image. Okay, Cool. So this tone curve, it's simply put, is an S curve that starts with the blacks and makes the blacks more black. Then you go up to the whites and make the whites more white. And you're kind of watching your Milky Way as you do that. So let's start over. I'm going to go to the blacks. I'm going to put that exposure back. Okay, go to the blacks, and I'm going to start going down. I can see my sky is getting dark, but my highlighted lighter part of my Milky Way is more visible. Like it's coming, it's not getting darker like the rest is getting darker. Plus, I'm going to go into the whites and bring them even more up. And that is a quick exposure with the tone curve. It's a nice contrast. If I get rid of my zoom and show you over here, here's the history. Now the way the history works is that you're going to have to go off and on to see a previous thing before. So I have the light tone edit, the dark tone edit, and the contrast edit. If I go back to the contrast edit, here's what it looked like before, and here's with now. Without the tone curve, with the tone curve. Without the tone curve, with the tone curve. So what I do, sometimes when I make an edit, I'm like, did that really make a difference? Did it make a good enough difference I should keep? I will go back and forth like this, a few steps back, and see, oh, you know what? That tone curve really did add a lot of contrast. And I'm happy with that contrast. It's not ugly, so I'm going to keep it. Boom. And then I move on. May I add contrast as well? I could, but I don't really need to, but I could. I could do that. In fact, I'm just going to go with plus 16 and show you how it's not broken. Then I bring up the highlights. The highlights are to make that Milky Way sky really bright, but if I go too much, look at how it just kind of blows out the basic part of the sky with the starry part of the sky. Let's say it this way, the fewer star section versus the overlapping billion stars in the center, they are kind of blending together when the highlights are too high. So do I want it at 0 or do I want it up a little bit? I'm going to bring it up a little bit, and then I can check that. Before contrast, before highlights, after. Oh, that's a bad one. Yeah, I like that change. And then whites is more sky. Going to bring out the more sky a little bit more, but not too much. And then dehaze does a lot. Watch my histogram as I play with dehaze. The histogram is going to crunch left. But not only that, but it also brings in bluish cobalt colors into my Milky Way sky. So you don't want to go too extreme, but it can be very helpful. So now the contrast before my dehaze slider to after, it's kind of faded, but then more accented. It's more focused on the Milky Way. So in this case, I like it. It's a subtle change. Quickly, there's dehaze. So then I'm going to do my foreground. In this case, I don't need to do too much because I have a foreground. So bringing my shadows up and my blacks up to make my foreground have some texture and clarity. Like I could do that. And it actually does. Oh, the clarity went away. Let's just give it like 7. Yeah. I could do that. And here's before I did all of it. So before any of the blacks, you see how it affected my sky? Some plenty. Not as much as it affected my foreground, though. My foreground, though, changed a lot. I'm going to go ahead and keep it like that just to keep it simple because you can see the foreground now instead of being totally dark. And this is just a good example. So all I did were these few sliders. And when you think about texture and clarity, don't go beyond like 25 on either of these. That's a little extreme no matter what the situation is. So unless you're really getting a benefit from it, I would keep it easy. 0 to 10, maybe in the teens. Then when you come to vibrance and saturation, I emphasize this in here. That right there is not addition of color. It's actually a stretch of color. It is going to possibly break, which is why I use the term stretch, because stretching something can break it. It's not just the more the better. Ah, look at this. Way cooler. No, I broke it. I only want to bring out the vibrance of what was happening that night. If I had a good air glow, if I got something interesting, and then I put it on and go, okay, what did that even change? Let's go before I added vibrance. Here's before, here's after. Here's before, here's after. Here's before, here's after. I don't even see a change. It's that subtle and practically nothing. Are you saying thanks, Kathy, because you're out of here? Have a good night. See you, Kathy. Double-click vibrance and double-clicking saturation because there wasn't a big enough benefit in adding it. I've had it needed for stuff like this picture. I've had it benefit here in pictures like this one, but I haven't needed it in some images. So back to Lightroom. So this right here is practically benefiting nothing to have that, so I'm not even going to mess with it. So I'm going to leave it out right there, and this is a quick edit, only using the sliders, only dealing with the stuff up here, and then I take this edit that I done to the core in the sky, and I'm going to shift click the rest of these images in sync and say, hey, do all the basic stuff. I also did lens corrections, boom, and then it has a bunch of other things that I didn't even touch, just synchronize. And that makes it better there. You know, by the way, just so you can see that I actually made a change, look at this before and after. Before, after. All right. Thank you, John. I got your text. So that's the before and that's the after. And that is a huge difference just to bring out that Milky Way and be as visible and as strong as I was seeing with my naked eye. So then I click off of my image and go back to this one because, you know, when you shift click everything in Lightroom, all these stay selected. If you select any one of these, they all stay selected. So I select off and then back on again because I want to go off. Don't select anything. Oh, it's really thinking hard. I must have too much running. Let's go ahead and kill my iPad. I don't think we'll need to go back. Stop mirroring that, and I don't think I need Photoshop anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and close this. Yeah, let's do that again. Not save. Don't need to worry about it. Cool. I'll close those out. Hopefully that'll keep things running a little faster. So I'm going to go off, and then I click back on. That's much faster. So now I got that image that I made the edits to. I'm going to go all the way over here to the edge, and I am going to sync those edits. Not right click, left click on the sync down here, and say yes, synchronize. And now all those images contain my changes. Now what's interesting is that different frames have a little different handling of the edit because of what's in the sky. For instance, there's a little bit more magenta showing up over here on the left, and that's one thing that John really liked getting rid of in post, was rebalancing out that magenta, and you'll see it here in a second. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go ahead and do photo merge. Photo merge for Panorama. Don't do HDR Panorama, just do it Panorama. And the only projection that you need to worry about, okay, there is denoise from SM Wilkes. You know what? I don't, but you can. In fact, John did, especially with denoise being a part of Lightroom now. It is really great. We did a stack and we also did a denoise, and the performances were pretty similar. And so when it comes to denoise, it's definitely an option. Go for it. Absolutely. Oh, and Chris Whiting says dehaze can get crazy fast, and that's why, you know, Tim Farmer's avoiding it, and it's because it does crunch your histogram and add that blue, and so you just don't want it. But you do want to get rid of some of the mist, the clouds, anything you might have, and just cut through to the detail of the core a little bit with it, and I liked having it. So once you're in your panorama and you got the merge going, the last thing I'd recommend is that in most cases you can do 100% boundary warp to fill your frame right to left, top to bottom, and everything will be good. It doesn't make a very weird shape. It would take a very poor leveling of your tripod to make the shape weird. So I usually go with that, and I'm going to go ahead and say merge. So we're going to let that run in the background while I pull up where you can't see an email from John so that you can see his final versions. That you'll see mine come together, but you'll also see this, which is awesome. You can also see some of the color changes and balances that he did to his personal liking that are really nice. So click on this and save. Come on, be big. There we go. Download that image and download this image. Cool. All right, so my stitch is still going. I believe you're seeing that. Let me get rid of this window so I can see what you're seeing. Yeah, you can see the stitch is still running. So I'm going to go ahead and open up his Factory Butte panel full, which includes the foreground captured at 30 seconds. And here you go. That is his panel. Aw, yeah. I'm going to shrink this over, make it nice and big. And let's go as big as I can get it. So you can see the performance of the sky nicely showing up. The foreground is nicely showing up, and he's got all of this stitched together. Now at first, it wasn't that way. We had a couple issues that in the thumbnail I pointed out, but I didn't actually talk about yet and show you. So let me show you in Lightroom. Here's the stitch that I just created, and then here's the stitch that, well, maybe that was the one I just created. Yeah, this is the one I created because I had a very dark foreground. But when you look at this one that we created, we started off with some interesting, funny elements. When I talk about the puckering, it happened with this here and here. It's really hard to see when I zoom in. This one is more visible. When I zoom in, you can see the line that's created here. But this one right there is not as visible. You can see it more easily from the distance. So like, if I were to zoom maybe only 12%, you might see it a little bit more, that there is an obvious puckering there, and puckering going down this. And that stitch, despite the overlap, despite everything else we did correctly, it still can happen. And the way that we fix that, I'll just use this one, edit it in Photoshop. It was simply using the healing brush liberally. The healing brush is so good now that you just need to kind of paint it in there and see how it goes. Paint it in there and see how it goes. Okay, so it looks like I started killing my stream a little bit, but I think it's going well. Let me know in chat if you're getting jumpiness. I think you're not, but it just was having an issue for a moment. So what are you doing, Photoshop? Are you opening up Photoshop? Photoshop is here. There we go. Let's close out that. So Photoshop is opening up that panel, and it's just taking a sec. So if you have any questions while it's coming up, let me know. Oh, did it crash Photoshop or just ended up switching windows? Okay, didn't crash it, just kind of popped up another window. Cool, cool, cool. If you have any questions, we're going to be coming out of here very shortly. So I just want to show this off. So this is, when I say liberally, I'm saying like you just kind of go easy going. So here's the healing brush. The healing brush is... Oh man, okay. Where is it? Here's the healing brush. Right there. It's a J tool. It looks like a band-aid. And with that, you're going to want to make the size of your brush a decent size where you can see what you're doing. Oh, I don't see ever the brush in my Lightroom on the live streams. That's right. So what size is this? Oh gosh. The outline of the brush goes away in a live stream for some reason lately. So if I... Oh, let me go ahead and unlock it. Maybe that's why the brush is gone. No, it's still there. Let's go to Healing Brush Tool. Brush bigger. Oh man, it really is invisible. I'm not using a source though. Spot healing brush. Maybe that's my problem. Come on, big. Ah, you're not gonna see it. That's how big it is, but you just can't see it. And if I go for that, that just got rid of it. Let's do undo, redo, undo, redo. That's an extreme example because I couldn't even see my brush size, but you can see how quickly that just replaced it. Now that big of a brush would be terrible because you got all those stars completely taken out. But if you go for a nice, let's try less than that, like 200, just on the wet line where you see it the worst, you can create it. But sometimes you create another line by doing that way, so you just kind of go and just bring it in a little bit and get rid of it. Like this line right here. Let's see if we can get that kind of minimize. You're breaking it up. It doesn't look as visible. Let's go for one of the more extremes right here. I didn't mean to make a crescent shape, but that worked. And then we go down into the terrain. Oh, you're sticking to my finger. Why are you sticking? Okay, there we go. J, and then right here. All right. Go back to the spot healing brush, please. All right. There we go. And that is much better and less distracting and gets rid of it. If you even have those problems, if you have a stitch problem, you can see that I still kind of have a faint line here, a faint line there. But here on the live stream, it's going to be nearly impossible for me to do a perfect edit, not to mention that it takes a little bit of micromanaging. But that is how we did it. We simply had a spot healing brush, and we went through and we cleaned it up. Imagine we wanted to get rid of this plane. You can use clone, or you can use spot healing brush, and you can click it once here. Oh, let's do a smaller brush. Let's try like 90, yeah. You click it once there, and then shift click that. It makes a line, and then that whole plane is gone. We have a little bit of weird smudge because my brush was too big, but you can't see it anymore if you weren't paying attention to it beforehand. So when you do happen to have something that happens in post that is going to be there still, despite your best efforts of overlapping a lot, giving Lightroom all the information in the world, you can do that to get rid of it. And you can see how we succeeded in getting rid of it with John's. You might see a different color of darkness here, here, and here, but it's not like a line that happened where the stitch was. It's even like if you think about it here, you think you might see it, but that might be mostly in your head. I mean, when I show you my favorite panorama in the world, you get some of the same stuff. This was a darker sky, a darker setup, just a different capture between his camera and my camera, and so you can see less of that terrain as bright. Let's go to another bright sky. Here's a bright sky, and you can see the transition darks and highlights that are happening through there, not on the stitch line, but just exist. And so there was John's right there. Let's go to John's Bonneville Salt Flats panel. This one had some of the same issues that we went and got rid of. We didn't have the same thing in the water, but we got rid of one over here. But there's one thing that we didn't get rid of yet, John, that I just realized the other day. I was like, oh, we never fixed that line right there. So on your high-res version, John, that little blip that goes underneath, you can do another healing brush and try and make that more gradual instead of that sharp, disconnected edge. Make that more connected, or at least kind of gradually fade in and not be visibly, obviously a glitch. I can't zoom in that way. That's right. So that's what John had. John Sievert turned out really well. Let me show off his solar eclipse guide. Go back over here. Zoom in. Aha. Yes. John Sievert's logo a little bit visible. There it is, fully. A little more attention. So, I didn't see any new questions pop in. When you're trying to capture a panorama, that's the best place that you can do something to succeed. The best way to succeed in a panorama is to fix it in what you do in your capture. The execution of the capture will inform your success more than in the post-processing. The post-processing is simple. Using Lightroom to stitch. The absolute best way to stitch, PT GUI, has all the great features and all the great ways to get your stitch to connect if it's not connecting correctly. But Lightroom works nearly 100% of the time for me, and I love using it to keep everything nice and simple. So Tom says, I do a lot of astrophotography as well. PixInsight definitely is useful for that. All the AI related stuff between Photoshop, Lightroom, and PixInsight is getting pretty impressive. Oh man, it sure is. Like they mentioned, the denoise. That's not necessarily AI, but it is having elements of AI in there. And so if I had selected one of my individual frames before I stitch it, then I can click on denoise. And when I do that, I wanted to show you, you get these enhanced images. So here's our edit of the salt flats where you can see it still had the air glow and was green as mine. But then we have all these different frames now. That raw number, the enhance-enhance.nr in there. So before we stitched, we took every frame, went and enhanced them one by one, did the exact same denoise setting to each one, and then with these we colored them red, shift-clicked them all, and created the panorama from the enhanced version of all of them. So the noise was cleaned up uniformly across each frame with the same settings and then stitched together. Thanks, Tom, for saying that. Thanks for hanging out for the whole hour. Chris Whiting says, my last panorama, Lightroom and Photoshop were having stitch issues with the tracked sky. I had to erase the foreground so the stitch didn't try to align the foreground. Otherwise, much puckering. Ooh, that's another good point. So when you're dealing with a panorama situation that is a star track tracker. Let me go big. Oh man, my seat has sunk. This seat has lost its hydraulic. Woo. Or I just got fatter. I did kind of get fatter over the winter. So if you're dealing with a tracked shot and you're spending 2 minutes, 3 minutes per, or stacking like 1, 2, 3, it's going for 3 to 5 minutes, then you go to the next one, there's a lot of movement happening. And on top of that, every tracked shot is going to have a foreground that's blurry. And so when it looks at that globally and sees the blurry part of the foreground too, it can cause a stitch issue because it's trying to stitch these blurry trees, blurry horizon, blurry rocks. And so I can see how that would definitely happen, Chris. What's funny is that I haven't recently done a stitch of a panorama for a stack shot in a long time. So that experience of the recent setup, it isn't as easy as fix. Like now, with the way they have the light, so let's go to here. Let me show you this. So this is Factory Butte plus Sky, and because they have that new really nice masking feature where I can just click Sky and it tries to find it and does its best in finding the sky, it's really interesting to see how well it detects it versus the rock. I do still have to go in and perfect it. As you can see, some pink that's in here, but if I go in here, come on, let's zoom in even more. Let's do 200%. Oh, maybe that's way too much. 100%, go all the way down, get the navigator, make it even easier on me. Go to the edge here, you can see how Factory Butte is mostly pink. So then I go and say subtract. I want to subtract sky, I'm going to brush it, and I just go and brush back Factory Butte from the selected sky. It's really quite easy to work with, and with this you can get your foreground and sky isolated and make edits uniquely to them as you go through. But it handles it pretty well, handles it very well, and that's a cool feature that we didn't have before, years ago. But last year now, 2? Is it 2 years already that it's been in? Probably. Thanks, Aaron. Hasta luego, anjalo. What's another word I learned in Spanish? It's a good goodbye. I'm thinking Russian paka. I'm thinking chus in German, but I can't pull out a Spanish one right now. Come on, pull out a Spanish one. See ya, Angelo. Thanks for hanging out with me. Harder to learn and harder to learn and use. Yes. Tim F, you like Capture One? Oh, okay, that's what we're talking about. Harder to learn. Okay, cool. Have you tried using the Panorama feature in Luminar Neo? I personally have an MSA Coach Mike. If you're asking me, I have not used Luminar Neo yet. I don't think I'm going to. I don't really need to with everything that I have working great for me, so I wouldn't be able to say whether or not the Panorama feature works great. Most likely it's just as successful because things have gotten so strong lately. Things have gotten so strong, easier and easier. Pretty soon it's going to come to the point to where my over 80... I'll say over 80 so no one gets offended. Over 80 students that come to my workshops, they don't have to learn post-processing. They'll just have an AI do it based off of what their likings are, and that'll help them a lot to enjoy their hobby of photography, have input in the AI's editing of their image, but not have to learn the ins and outs of how to add something I've never done since like 2016, but like an Orton effect in Photoshop. You don't have to learn to do all the weird layering that does that. You don't have to learn luminosity masking, stuff like that. You're welcome, Steve. Thanks for hanging this long. We went for an hour and a half. I always think I can do it faster, but I fail. I guess I got to teach a little bit less stuff. So thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for being here for Milky Way Wednesday. If you have any interest in coming back for more, I'll be adding some short, quick lessons to the channel, as well as if you're interested in some workshops where we can learn together in person, please check out my workshops page. I'm editing those. If you have any questions about them, I do have a Milky Way class teaching you about these apps. I have the Milky Way Apps Masterclass, which I'll be probably making a video on tomorrow to advertise so that people know about it, and you can get in there. The class begins an 8-week course next Tuesday, the 26th, right? That's Tuesday? I believe it is. It starts next Tuesday. Milky Way Apps Masterclass. Love to have you in there to learn planet photo pills, the weather apps I use to predict the weather, the stuff that I do for all of my Milky Way photography. I'm going to help you master. Thanks, John. Thanks for sharing your pictures. Bob Keivel. Aaron, at what point in the post-processing do you add denoise? Okay. So in the point that you have done all of your edits, Let's get rid of this sky mask. Let's actually get rid of it. Okay, cool. So you've done all of your edits and you've synced them to every frame. At that point, when you're about ready to stitch, you go in and add denoise. You click on that frame, do a denoise. Scroll down to the denoise, and you choose something that is like 25%, whatever your personal favorite is, and go for it. Tim Farmer, thank you, man. Thanks for that. What's your next workshop? My next workshop is Bistai. It is full, but the one after Bistai, the Southern Utah Winter, is the best of both worlds workshop, where you get winter Milky Way Panorama and summer Milky Way Panorama in the same night. And it's going to be a blast. We're going to be up in all those locations. So that's April, going out to Southern Utah. Ron says, thanks, you're welcome. And so, Bob, when you've got one image, all your images done, ready to go, and you choose the denoise, we like 25 when myself and John were working on it last week, or a couple days ago. We went with that, but you can go any version of what you would like and cancel out of that. And then you should apply that denoise to that frame, then click on the next frame, then the next frame, and repeat the denoise steps. You'll have to go to 25, click OK. Luckily, denoise remembers your last number. So say you were on number 8 right here, and you went and did denoise 25. Committed it, it saved it off, you're ready for 7. You click on denoise at 7, and it's already set up for 25. So you just really have to click on number 7, click denoise, click OK, boom, done. Then you go to the next. And each one of these will be a duplicated frame where, let me just show you all pictures. So you can see here with John's, we have the original that we post-processed. Actually, I guess I don't have that. I only have the enhanced frame. But he has the enhanced frame next to the other frame. So it's like enhanced, non-enhanced, enhanced, non-enhanced. And so we have the duplicate, because once there's an enhanced version, it takes that frame, so like this number 07625, and then it gives me a, let's go back. This one's a 07625/enhanced.nr or -nr. So that is going to be a new image next to the old one that you just edited, and you'll have both options. That's right, Tim. Only 7 thumbs up. Chris Whiting says, if stacking, you can denoise at 10 and get great results. So greater than 10? At greater than 10. Because I'm at 25. So you're saying you basically do a stacking, do a denoise as well? Did you stack and then denoise, or denoise and then stack the denoise TIFFs? Like you created the denoise, you created the edit, did the denoise, had a resulting TIFF file that then you brought all those TIFF files in and stacked? Is that what you did, Chris? So hope that answers your question, Bob. And hope you're good there. I'm thinking about what else. I might as well show off while I'm waiting for some of these questions. Oh, you know what? I'm going to have to find it in the background. That's right. I know that this one has it in there, so let me click on it this way. So you can see my masterclass here. This is starting up in next week, and there's going to be 2 versions of it. And the 2 versions are slightly different. So what happens here is there's an 8-week course for the crash course. If you want to get involved in just the crash course, you have 8 weeks of classes, and you have 3 one-on-one tutoring sessions with me. And the schedule looks like this. Let me zoom in a way that you can make this legible. Large. And then, come on, scroll to the right and left. Well, why isn't that an option? Okay, I'll do this. So you can see how, oh, come on, don't help me out, Windows. Right here is the schedule. There's Tuesday night classes and 7 Thursday night classes. Basically, I'm going to be teaching photo pills in both class, and I'll be teaching the same lesson with the Zoom class, so there's interjections from the students. The students say, hey, Aaron, what are you doing here? I don't understand what you just did. And they stop me. I help them, instruct them, and help them get there, and we keep everyone on the same page. So I do that class on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The Thursday class is just for those part of the full course, and those who are part of the crash course only are only on Tuesdays, the first number here. So there's 8 weeks of that. There's basically 4 weeks of teaching, then there's going to be a week or 2 of going one-on-one with everybody. Then there's 2 more weeks of teaching, then there's another week of one-on-one to make sure everyone's on the same page, teach you one-on-one personally, make sure everyone's good, and then take what you tell me you're weakest on and bring it into like the week 7 and week 8 lessons to make sure I cover the weakest spots, and then we go into a final one-on-one to make sure your mastery is where we want it to be, knowing that after 8 weeks it won't be perfect, but we at least have all those questions answered and things that you need help with taken care of. So like I said, there's a full week version, there's a crash course version, and a full course version. All year long, I'm helping students in the full course, and they get 10 one-on-one sessions with me. Plus, they have 2 classes a week that they can make. If they miss the Tuesday one, they can either watch the replay, or they can be a participant in the Thursday one. Or if they need, they can be there for both classes and then get really direct answers and questions as many times as they want as we go through the lesson, and I can help you one-on-one, kind of in the classroom setting, after the class is all logged off or towards the end of the Zoom class, stuff like that. Answer questions one-on-one happens all the time. Then the difference is $100 for the crash course, where you have the 8-week course, 3 one-on-one tutoring sessions with me. These one-on-one sessions are an hour long with a little bit of leeway towards 1 hour and a half, and a 1 hour one-on-one session with me is $60. So if you wanted to buy that tomorrow, it'd be $60 for just one of them. So 3 of them for $100 is already great, not to mention you have access to the course, you have the 8 weeks instruction, you have a PDF coursework that I'm putting up together with these step-by-step instructions, as well as, the Zoom class that you're attending. So then you get the crash course for $100 or the full course for $400, and we'll spend the entire year making sure you're at mastery. The students who are in this class, even though they have 10 one-on-one tutoring sessions, I will spend time with you after that to make sure you get where you need to get. If we can't get there after 15, then there's just something that's really tough, and it's just tough to learn. But we will be able to get you mastered at that point, and I think that you're going to love knowing photopills and planet like the back of your hand, at least as far as it's concerned Milky Way, as far as Milky Way photography is concerned. So Lightroom will only denoise the raw. Yeah, that's true. I'm just saying, did you take it and stack it and then bring it back? You're right, I asked that. Yeah, if you are if you are bringing it back from stacking to denoise, you can't. You're right. It does not allow it. It only is the raw. So you have to denoise it and then bring it into stacking too. So you've been doing it like less than 10. Oh yeah, you did correct that. So you did denoise less than 10. And then you took that slightly denoised version and brought it into stacking, and you felt like you got great results. Cool. Awesome. What a deal. I charge $125 for a one-on-one. You do, Tim? All right. Well, I need to start raising my prices to compete with Tim. I want to make $125. That's awesome. Sweet, sweet. Is there anyone else I can help? We're definitely going on long, but I'm here if you'd like any questions answered. I'll be here for another 30 seconds with those of you who might have a question. I might as well do this. Workshops.photogadventures.com. And the next one's Bistai Badlands. Join us over there. Actually, it's full, sold out. But you can join us for Southern Utah Winter. And I was looking today at my Southern Utah Panorama, and I say 3 slots available, but I'm actually only seeing a few people. So this was incorrect. I need to fix that. I have a lot more openings for that spot. And it looks like the Moab Arches area is going to be canceled. The one participant who signed up for it so far has a consideration of timing that won't work out. And so with only one, probably not worth it to fulfill the permit there. So I'm going to go ahead and probably postpone that for another year. But we will have the availability of a couple more spots. It says 3. I need to update that. It's two left on Dolomites, and I have 5 remaining in Southern Utah. I do have more than this remaining in Southern Utah Panorama. This is Winter Pano and Summer Pano, and this is just Summer Pano. There will not be Orion or the Winter Milky Way Panorama as good at this time, so we won't be doing it. And then Oregon Coast is sold out. Faroe Island Summer, I think, is going to be moved. We got Paolo in there, and I think we're going to pull it to another time. But New Zealand Trailblazer, 2 more slots left to go to New Zealand. Hey, just bought my Nightscaper today. Anyone else? Cool. Anyone else get the Nightscaper? You can denoise in Photoshop after processing using the process filter. Yeah, cool, in Photoshop. Right on. No, Ron, I haven't. Haven't filled it up yet. I've got 2 more slots in New Zealand. We've got 4 awesome people going, and we could use 2 more if you want to join. Now, Ron is going or Ray is going? Ray is going. Ray's coming. No, Ron's coming. Ray's coming. Ron, you're not the Ray that I'm thinking of that's coming, right? You're just happen to have a name that starts with R. It's only 3 letters. That is starting to warp in my brain as to who's coming. Let's see. I'm running out of water. I need some water. I didn't get any new questions that had popped up or cropped up, so I'm going to go ahead and say thanks and drink my water off camera. So thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me. You're welcome, Bob. And Ron is going. Okay, cool. It was Ron, not Ray. Thank you. My mind was thinking Ray for a moment, and I messed that up. Sorry about that, Ron. So then, sweet. We are 2 slots left for that. 2 slots left. Thanks everybody for hanging out with me. Thanks for jumping in on a Milky Way Wednesday. My name is Aaron King. If you'd like to have any other videos or lessons taught in a shorter version, and you're like, hey Aaron, you haven't made a shorter version of this video yet, could you make it? Put a comment in this video or email me at milkywaywednesday@gmail.com, or just if you have another way of messaging me, you can, if you know my other email. So thanks so much. Have a good night, and I will see you all next Wednesday. I am here for the next 3 Wednesdays, so I can't wait to enjoy that with all of you. Later. Welcome back, Tim, and anyone else who's here. I did it again. To Tim. I told him, hey, wait for me on the end, and then we'll do this. Okay, let me open up Google Earth. So I'm going to show you on Google Earth basically the places that I go. And the problem that I ran into last week is I was up on a hill that was really tight. So, I can't believe I did that again. All right, so Factory Butte, man. You can see my few marks that I've already put on here. If I look at, let's do this one and go into maps.google. You know, you're going to charge your next client $125 to share this information. Maybe I shouldn't be so freewheeling with it, huh? I should charge you $125. Let's see, maps.google.com. Zooming out, and on my maps, you can see all my markers. So around Factory Butte, I got a few. Okay, load them all. It's busy loading. At least it should be loading. Hey, ¿por qué you're not showing it? This is the only one. Factory Butte. What about my marks on here? Saved. Potential Milky Way sites. There you go. All right, now we're talking. Okay, so you can see things here. We went, let me bring the shelf in right here. All right, so we went around, because on this side, looking that way, you know, I can't see my cursor, but that way. Let me make that pink, because you're not going to be able to see that at all. Sorry about this extra time, but hopefully it's helpful. I mean, it will be, but just hopefully it's worth it. It will be. What am I saying? And I can't make it bigger because for some reason it does not go bigger. But I can at least make it pink. No? You don't even see it pink. I don't understand that. What's the deal? What's the deal? Windows and Streamlabs. Anyway, here's my cursor. We were on this road looking in this way for our westward Milky Way, winter Milky Way. Then from this point looking south, we have a nice broad shape, which is why we're kind of at this angle to kind of keep this broad shape, plus a Milky Way vertical right behind it. He can see it. That's good. Good. Then there's these different spots that we went over here. Now this one right here is on the way in. You just barely come down this hill, and there's a nice flat spot for a lot of parking. This is where we were for the annular eclipse. Looking this way down at Factory Butte, had annular eclipse off to the right here. When I went with John, and we wanted to make sure we can get that panorama, we came down to this spot and this spot. And this is the spot I tried first, and I was really excited about it. I was like, okay, this will be easy. Look at this shallow end right there, will be good. And as I was driving to this spot, looking up here, it felt good, like, oh, I'll go for it. And something about this spot right here I thought would work. But this shadow, actually no, see here's the Milky Way. It was this section right here. This was the lower spot right there of this high point. Sight unseen, it's dark outside already. And we went to the lowest spot here, thinking that this shadow ridge might be okay. We might be high enough to see over it. I mean, this looks like nothing. This parking here, walking straight up, it is not nothing. How do I show this off? Basically, we got to the point where we're on our fours, all fours, crawling up it. It was as if you were trying to climb up a newly plowed road that made a steep mountain, and you're going to go straight up it. But it was also, terrain was falling out from underneath us, and I was getting it in my shoes. I was going to get it in my shirt. I was getting piled in there. I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I bringing John up this hill? We walked from here to this point, no time at all. Maybe this last section, a little bit of a huff and puff, but it was fine. It was just go up a little bit softer kind of moon-like terrain. Then this last stretch, of which was probably only about 30 yards, probably 15 to 20 yards, it was like straight up enough that if it slid up underneath you made no progress. And you're like, this is ridiculous. Why are we doing this? So it did not turn out. All of this slope, all of it is going to be heinous rock. Like you need to go to like this opening here. This is the spot that I went up. You can even see a trail right there. This is a spot that I went up with Ida. And with Ida, at the end of the year, it's in like October, it was a great position for Orion looking directly east. But for the Milky Way, we just ended up pushing the core off too much to be where Ida and I were, where walking up this was easy. I mean, tough a little bit, but it was fine. And then this part right here is harder rock, and it was quite terrific. Harder rock to stand on, and it was a cool little chalice V shape underneath us that kind of framed the terrain leaning into Factory Butte's composition. So I loved it. But when we tried to go up another version of this spot right here, it was horrible. Like that was not easy to go up. It was not easy at all. Can I even show it off? Google Earth might show it off a little bit. Oh yeah, it's kind of dramatic in here. You can see how dramatic it can be. So it's quite a slope. And with that, I wouldn't go there. What ended up working for us, and if you're going to be there soon enough, I bet you will like this too. Since we left this spot, we wanted to come up but not too far. So we ended up going to this point. And this point seems like a high, steep spot, but this is a lower spot. So we parked right there in this corner and walked up this path. So this little dropped pin, just everyone who's still here, because there's like 18 of you right now hanging out. This location, I'm going to share it right here. Boom. And that should work. Let me go into this one and open it up myself and make sure it takes you right where I'm thinking. Yep, it does. Takes you right there. And so that's the spot you want to drive to. Now, in a Kia, in a rental car that I'm like, oh boy, I don't have really the cool like Explorer right now to use. Will this terrain be good? This windy road, you don't follow the wash like it looks like. No, you go from here up this, and then you go through this path that then continues up to the main road right here. Main meaning gravel, but main. That right there. And that was easy. There weren't any spots currently, unless there's a big washout of rain, weren't any spots currently that required any clearance. It was just don't do anything stupid like going off the edge, and you're good. There's only a few spots that are kind of higher elevated that you can go off the edge. It's not really an edge. It's just, it'd take a real fool to get a problem. So we walked up here, and then from this, we walked over a hump, and I think we hung out on this hump. But it might have been this hump, honestly, that we ended up on for John's shot. In fact, this kind of looks like the winnowy ridge right in front of us. Where's John's image? John's image is right here. Factory Butte, Pano. So, yeah, that looks kind of like that terrain right here. So we probably, not this one, but we went to this ledge and shot from there, and we were close to that part, yeah. So you can see Factory Butte comes off really well from there. The shape of it is at an angle where you can see a broader side, but not straight on, and not the fully broad side, but it's a really good spot for the Milky Way panorama. Ba-bam. The closer you go, the bigger Factory Butte will be in your shot, of course. And if you go to the right, you can make it in the middle or whatever you like. Change that parallaxing as you're going, and you have a Subaru, so you're good. Cool. So this is Factory Butte's Milky Way. You want to go to that pin that I shared with you. Now, here's the other thing you need to know. Why isn't this showing this anymore? It's not showing my drive. Okay, well, it's not showing the pin to make it easier, but it's this pathway right here. I'll go into Google Earth so you can see it, and I can draw a path on it. So there's these two roads that come in here. This one, bad. Can have bouncy spots, especially right here. This one, totally fine. Just don't pop a tire on a rock by going too quickly and hit anything too heinously fast. Oh, I'm not even looking on Google Earth. There's Google Earth. Okay, right here. This path. And I'm going to draw that path on there so you can see it. I'm just going as close as I can really quick. And that is Mars Overlook. Style, let's make it pink. Nice and bright. Let's make it big. Okay, let's make it really big. Okay, that is the path. I just created that path. Properties, measurements. That is not 2.6 miles. Is that the one I'm looking at? Oh, it is? That's 2.6 miles. Huh. I'm impressed. I didn't think it was 2.6 miles, but I suppose that isn't over in 4 seconds, so it must be a little long. All right, 2.65 miles. Definitely a little bit of a walk if you walked it, but you don't need to. A little Kia made the passage just fine. Right there. And you come out here to Mars Overlook, and you enjoy quite fantastic views. You can't see them right here, but these are cool little pinnacles. Let's see what this picture is. Yep. Mars Overlook. That's weirdly edited, but yeah, Mars Overlook. So I have a Subaru good. I'm going to the moon. Overlook, yes. Cool, I had the southern path marked. I will use the north path. Oh, good. I'm glad I helped you there. Because this straight on path seems like a good idea, but I've been there in years where it's like ba-boom, 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 and I was going like 20, so I'd rather go this path. This might be good. I haven't been on it for 3 years, maybe 4, but when I was on there 4, I was glad I had a giant truck that was able to survive the bouncing that I just did. In fact, when I got there, Kathy's like, man, that was fun. I got a chance to use my Jeep for what it's supposed to be for. So she enjoyed that. Yeah, Tim, me too. So Chris is one of the guys hanging out with us right now. Hey, Chris. So that is the Mars Overlook Drive. And so what you end up doing is you spend your early part of the night, capture that. If there's clouds didn't skunk you like it does, it skunked us for winter pano. We had to wait until 3 a.m. to do the Milky Way panorama with the core, and then we had a good sunrise. At least we thought. With all those clouds that came in on us at the very end, it was like, this is perfect. It's going to be a brilliant sunrise. And then it was just enough clouds on the horizon to block the sunrise, except for like 5 to 8 minutes. And those 5 to 8 minutes were good. He got some good shots, but he didn't end up getting a colorful sunrise at all. He didn't end up getting anything other than diffuse light coming through the clouds. So that it worked out. So that is awesome way of appreciating it. And while we're here, might as well just tell you, this is your pathway to what you already know, the Long Dawn Silver. You drive to this point, park, and hike to this point, and then get sad because this doesn't line up with the Milky Way as good as it was supposed to. It's just not directly south. As you can see, I'm looking directly down my leading line, and that's not directly south, that's more southwest. So when I want to look directly south, I'm looking this way, and the vertical Milky Way ends up being off to the left of that, and that was sad. I thought it lined up perfectly, not because I did photo pills or anything, but because I saw people's pictures and I was excited about it. I went there not having looked at one recently enough to realize they may have moved it, and boom, there's the Milky Way. Not in the position I wanted, but it's a cool spot. All right, April is all eclipse for me, teaching 4 classes. Woohoo, nice. I am not messing with eclipse for the classes. I'm just going to go solo, and then after the eclipse, go into Bistai. So that'll be nice. I'm thinking Angel of Death over Long Dawn. Oh, Angle of Death? What's the angle of death? Is it Angel of Death over Long Dawn? What do you mean by Angel of Death? Is that something I should know? Is that the terminology for a part of the sky? Or is that like morning light? Or is there just a really cool, like, Angel of Death is a, drone flying over it, drawing a halo over the rock? Is that what you're talking about? So, anyone else who's hanging out right now that have the question? Because at this point, it's just kind of a free-for-all. I ended up not closing off. Yeah, the Bistai Angel. What are you calling the Bistai Angel? Because there's Shipwreck. Cool Angel of Death. Is that what you're talking about? Shiprock? Oh, it's Bistai Angel close to Long Dawn. I don't know that one. Ashish Shinoja, hey, I'm from India. I shoot my first tracks Milky Way from the coast. Will you help me in post-processing, please? No hope but being courageous to ask. TIA, clear skies. Hey, Ashish. So I can help you, and I can give you a link from my calendar to sign up, but unfortunately it is a cost. There's $60 for a one-on-one post-processing hangout, or $60 for an hour one-on-one. And it could be post-processing, it could be editing or like a image review, or it could be doing some apps and working together. But yeah, you can go ahead and get one of those if you'd like. I'm going to give you the email. Send me the email here if you'd like to go for it. I would love to hang out with you and do some post-processing. But since I can't lock myself up into post-processing people for all the time, because I have other people who have signed up for things with me, the best thing I can do is to still offer them, but they just have to cost money. There's other ways to get them too. I'm losing my voice. I need that water. I never took any of it. So, Ashish, I haven't announced it yet, but I'm going to announce it to my email list that if you have any friends or you yourself would like to have some extra one-on-one help and a workshop, I'm adding in 5 hours of one-on-one help if you jump in on a workshop. And I'm also putting those workshops onto a discount because I have 3 of them. No, only 2. I think it's only 2 because I'm going to cancel that one. I got to cancel the Moab Arches one. With only one person, it's not going to work. So this one, Southern Utah Winter in April 29th through May, June 25th through 29th, those are workshops. I know you're in India, and maybe you can't get out here at all. So you might have to just go for the $60. But if you wanted to just spend $1,000, no, it's $1,195. That's what I'm working out. So it's saving $600 from the full price, but it's not the same savings that those people got at the beginning of the year. We got a great deal on the January 1st beginning of the year sale. So $11.95, but it'll come with 5 one-on-ones, so that you can really have help before you go into a workshop with me. That way, because I love teaching with my apprentices last week, and having all that preparation leading into the workshop was a lot of fun, that one-on-one stuff, and then putting it into action in person. It was wonderful. He's a student anyway, so Ashish, I don't know if you're he or she. You're saying I'm a student, but I will save the email for future reference. I can understand. Yes, but here's the thing I will give you too. Post-processing help, I have a couple videos that emphasize the simple methodology that I do, the stuff that anyone can go for. So when you go to Photog Adventures, the YouTube page, and you look for the popular videos, this easy Milky Way post-processing, other than the end where it has the Nick collection, everything in here that I just did today, plus this, easy going, and it's a panorama. So you see the panorama sinking and the stitching, and it's 6 years old. I need to update this one and give a nice, but it's almost the exact same. It's just the differences are highlights used to drag all the way to the left. You don't do that anymore. There's been a change in the program where you can keep it at 0 and even plug it up a little bit. But back then you used to go all the way back to 0. So if you go to my channel and see that, that'll give you some help right there. But I'm also more than happy to hook you up with this. Let me go off screen for this. I have another question on there that I'm ignoring. I'm in Bistai 4 or 5 before the eclipse. Oh, cool. I'll be in Bistai right after you. I'm starting on the 11th. Tim Farmer says, no, sorry. Angel is close to Long Dawn. Getting the map right now. Okay, cool. Thanks, Tim. I didn't miss anyone else. Cool. So this is from my Milky Way course, Ashish. It's only $30, but this one is the emphasis on simple, easy post-processing. And let me just throw this to you for free, man, because I don't care. It's just this one video, but at least it'll get you started. It's basically everything that we would do together in the simple method of Lightroom only. And I'm going to give you 2 examples so you can see it in action. There'll be 3 videos. It'll explain what I'm doing, and then it'll go through 2 edits fully that you can practice with. Milky Way course preview. No. Where's the actual course? These are previews, but the actual course. Okay, basics of post-processing. Let's open that up. What is the difference between those two? So this is Module 6, breaking down the basics, and this is the Milky Way Wednesday. Cool. I mean, I can show you both of those videos. That's an unlisted Milky Way Wednesday video that you might want, so why not? So on YouTube. All right. And everyone who's hanging out right now, who watches this in a replay or whatever, you're going to see this chat. If you can find it, then enjoy. So here is an old Milky Way Wednesday with giant bearded Aaron. That's talking about the basics of editing. It includes this breaking down the basics video that is part of the course. That is basically what I talk about today. And then this one over here, I'll just give you one of these. Which one's longer? I'll give the longer one. I'll be generous. This one is an actual edit using those basics from beginning to end. And that will help you see it in long form and practice what I'm doing. Just very simple edits, man. It's just keeping things simple so that anyone can do it. And then if you want to go further than that, you can be as artistic as you want in Photoshop and get some great results. But these will get you started on the results. So enjoy that. Thank you so much. You bet. Hopefully, I will try the Milky Way Pano with 50 millimeter. Oh boy. I mean, 50 millimeter, Ashish, you're going to be torturing yourself because you're going to have 2 to 4 rows, depending on what you want in the frame. But yeah, it's great. 50 millimeter that I had, the Nifty 50, is so hard to get the focus right. But if your 50 millimeter is easier to get focus right, then all you have to do is just Gigapano stitch everything. Should be okay. I tried last time, but the corners got cut while stitching and got steps wrong. Okay, yeah, you can easily forget steps on a 50 millimeter because you can kind of accidentally not overlap enough. So good luck with that. Save those videos. Thank you so much. You're welcome, Ashish. Enjoy. Thanks for chilling out with us. Angel of Death, you think this is it? So Tim Farmer has a link. I wonder if Google is going to let you share a link on there. It'll probably ask me if I want to edit it out. 24 millimeter is hard enough. Nah, no, it's not. 35 would be a little harder, but yeah, it is hard enough anyway without trying to make it like a zoomed in. Just for an example, I don't have it all stitched on, but like I've got Planet, I think, already open to what we were doing. Let me go on to full screen. My chair is falling again. I gotta get this fixed. Or a new chair. All right, I'm so tiny. So right now, in my, well, you can't see anything. Maybe, Aaron, you should just share it. You're hanging out. Why don't you just continue hanging out? I don't know. Why wouldn't I? These people are your friends. You guys are my friends, really. Like Chris and Tim have been hanging out with me forever. And so it's awesome to hang out with you right now. Is that reflector up? Oh, yeah, it is. 8773. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see this. But it's just an example of your possible insanity, Ashish, where you are going to have like 20 images where you would only have had like 7. All right, IMAX screen. Let me turn on just the iPhone and turn on the phone background. Change this to be this one right there. Cool. So now it's just my iPhone, nice and not busy. Small live chat. Turn you on again. So here it is in Planet, and you can see I have my panorama already set. Down here in this button in Planet, I can make that. It's already set for Panorama too. I'm going to go into VR. So this is VR at a 90 millimeter to do this area. Let's change this to 24, like Tim was saying. 24 is hard enough, he says. 24, let's do portrait orientation, and I want it to be, let's do the 190 that Chris is reminding us works really well. Set it. I feel like I'm still cutting off areas. Why? Okay, so this is going behind me a little bit, so that is 190. Cool. So VR at 24 millimeters with a, oh yeah, how much overlap am I doing? Let's do a 50% big time overlap back. So now with 50% overlap, I've got 7 images right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And because I'm going up to get all this, it's including this information to go up. Landscape, portrait. It's really extreme. It's really extreme, the up that it's getting, but it's showing both. So you can see from right to left, getting a full panorama. It's going to take me 7 images. If I change this to the 50 millimeter, you're going to have to do 18 and 4 rows to get the same framing. 18 and 4 rows, so that's intense. Yeah, the 16:9 ratio. It's less extreme, yeah. Yeah, it's far more less extreme. I like that. It's saying 6 rows now for a 50 millimeter to get that because it has so much foreground. But that's 16:9 ratio. It said if possible. I wonder if it actually considered it possible. Probably not because it has so much more to the top and bottom. But yeah. So Ashish 50 is going to be possible. It's just you've got basically double to a few more that you have to do in order to get all the same frame, with all the same, capture in the frame. So it's much more work. But yeah. All right. So I'm on 2 hours. I got to take a drink. Anything else? You guys are hanging out with me. Any other questions before I go? It's only been 2 hours. All right. I really like this thumbnail. The thumbnail worked out well. But I need to make a tight video with this thumbnail. Because that's one thing. Oh, I'm hovering over a screen you can't even see. I like this thumbnail. I liked it a lot. Felt like it worked well. It was neat. But I need to go ahead and create some better videos to start filling up my popular videos with new names, new stuff. I got to do a bunch of tight videos. I've been doing a lot of Milky Way Wednesdays. They get hundreds of views, but that's nothing. I need to get some serious ones out there. Ashish says, how many shots are enough per frame while shooting? Basically, don't think of it necessarily by number of shots. Just think of it as you're going to go all the way past the row of Fuki and past the Milky Way. Like Chris was pointing out, you want to have some extra room, right? And so you're going to have extra room on your right, get through the Milky Way up and down, go past Cassiopeia, the W constellation, because you're in the north, you see the same sky that we do, and then you go beyond it a little bit, just to give it a little bit of headroom on both sides. That's the 190, and then make sure you're above Vega or at Vega, and then as much foreground as you want. So if you got just your Milky Way sky, you only need to do 50 millimeter until you go from one side of the Milky Way to the other. Start at the row of Fuki and work your way all the way over to Cassiopeia. Being 50, you're probably going to do 2 rows just to get the sky. And then your foreground will be 4 rows. I mean, like 2 more rows or 1 more row for a total of 4 or a total of 3. You just need a bunch right there. You're welcome, Tim. Hope to see you in the guild. I posted a winter panel I need work on. Oh, cool. Yeah, I am actually. I was there yesterday. And because I left you guys hanging so much for the last 5-7 weeks, I'm not going to be as off of the guild as I have been the last year, so I'll be on there. Hey, Ron, thanks again for patient with me calling you Ray. Well, at least you still have Milky Way Wednesday up. Yes, I do. Winter Milky Way is the current theme. Yeah, I know. I wish I got one. I borrowed the Astro-modified camera from Clarence Spencer, and I was going to do it this last week, but with John, we weren't able to, he needed to use my tripod, and we weren't able to have good enough nights where I could do a winter Milky Way panel. We just never saw it. And so I missed my chance of creating one of my own portfolio pieces of the winter Milky Way panel. So I'm hoping to do that here on the way to the eclipse. Any other questions coming in? No, I don't think so. I'll give it another minute. So at 9:14, I'm out, and we'll go on our way. But I got to get some more tight videos up here where people can find it and enjoy the lesson without having to be here for 2 hours. If they watch this replay, they'll be like, holy crap, it went for 2 hours? I just did my second one in the guild. Oh, cool. Let's see how it's working. Yay, it works. This looks very good. And you got the water. It's still a great time. How much water was still there? Yeah, don't leave quite yet. How much water was still there? Like, is it just ankle deep or up to your calf? Tim says, I may head up and meet Spencer on my trip just to say thanks. Oh, please do. You definitely should. He deserves it. But this looks awesome, Chris. I wish you were able to, like, it's a little high, so you couldn't get enough reflection down below, huh? Let's see. This is this. That is that. You can't get those low contrast objects to show, but you got the Ryan's belt showing right there, so it's not like it's cropping off the Milky Way. But I think the Milky Way band is coming off frame and back on. Oh, you're not seeing what I'm seeing. I'm doing this. Sorry. I'm not even showing you what I'm showing. This stuff right here. It looks awesome. Love from India. You too, Ashish. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Wrong, Chris. That was CCW. Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm seeing Woodruff and then looking over here and talking to Chris Whiting. His is terrible. Looked horrible. Let's see a good one. Ah, here's a good one. Oh, actually, I really do like this. So you weren't there at the water, so you can definitely go. You were saying you're heading out, so see you next week, man. But that looks awesome. That's the Granite Mountain one that I think you and I were talking about years ago. Where I'm like, I drive past that and think about it all the time on the way to Joshua Tree. I didn't know about these few standing rocks. That's really cool. I like that a lot. Yeah, I should take that. That's a good westward-looking one. Oh, I gotta go on a trip. Let's see. Tim Farmer says, oh yeah, you said that already. If anyone's planning to visit India, you're most welcome. Be our guest. We'll help to make an itinerary after it's a chilling, treks, coastal, or photography trip. Sweet. Hopefully see you in future Milky Way Wednesdays, Ashish, and then we can get to know you more. All right. That's cool. I like that a lot. I gotta check out your guys' stuff and comment. Oh yeah, we already commented on this one though. Why does it say Yorba Linda, California? Oh, because he's at. Yeah, because this is out there at Devil's Garden. I mean, it's definitely Devil's Garden. There's not rocks like that out there, is there? It's Devil's Garden. That looks like Grand Staircase stuff in the background. Cool, cool, cool. But that's you. Love it, Chris. This is the back in the camping area. Oh. Yeah, I can see someone's light right there. Turns out nice. Turns out really nice. I do love this about the guild. You know, it's weird that the guild now doesn't have any of our other categories. I gotta fix all of those spaces. Like we used to have categories and content, but now I can just show by these things. It really is too bad. It's all muddled, but it's ad free. There's no crap, no distraction. Love that about the guild. Okay, all right. I gave it some extra time. I don't think anyone else is showing up with any questions. So those of you hanging out with me right now, thanks for hanging for a long time. You were awesome to be nerding out with this stuff with me for so long. I hope you have a good night, and I will see you next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Later.